Hello, and thank you for joining Caterpillar's Safety Culture World webinar titled Good Isn't Good Enough, Building Beyond an Improvement Plateau. I'm Abby Rhodes, Marketing Manager for Caterpillar Safety Services, and I will facilitate today's event. First, a couple of announcements. The phone lines are muted, but I encourage you to submit questions for our presenter, Mike Brodock, through the Q&A or chat areas of WebEx, or if you have any technical problems, you can communicate with me that way. We will use the final 10 or 15 minutes of today's presentation for Q&A for Mike. Also, this event is being recorded. A link to the recording, including the slide presentation and audio, will be posted to safety.cat.com within 24 hours, and you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the site and an invitation to complete a brief survey. Now, I'm honored to introduce today's presenter. Mike Brodock is a senior safety consultant with Caterpillar Safety Services and a certified mine safety professional. Mike has more than 25 years of experience in the fields of civil engineering, environmental health and safety, fleet management, and leadership development. Before joining Caterpillar, Mike was the Vice President for Support Services at Knife River Corporation, where he also served as Director of Safety. Under his guidance, Knife River earned national recognition for transforming its safety culture with tools developed by Caterpillar Safety Services. Mike will describe some of those tools and processes today. So without further ado, I turn the microphone over to Mike Brodock.
Great. Thanks, Abby, and good morning, everyone. It's always good to see your smiling faces. Actually, I can't see your faces, but I always start my webinars with that. I was planning to make it home to Arizona. I've been working on the East Coast, but I am stranded in Charlotte, North Carolina, in a motel room by the airport. So if you hear the occasional jet going over, that would explain where I'm at. So Abby did a great job introducing myself, and I'm very fortunate to work with Caterpillar Safety Services, and a little bio of my background, and was very blessed to work in various positions, various careers, and happy to be part of Caterpillar Safety Services. Of course, Caterpillar Safety Services, we're safety culture consultants, and we work internally with CAT companies as well as external companies of helping assess their company culture, as well as providing tools for improvement and suggestions in that. We work in various industries, whether it's heavy construction, forestry, mining, the utility side, and so on and so forth. So myself and other consultants are very fortunate to work in various industries. Throughout my career, especially with Knife River, I was able to apply the tools that you'll see today, and whether it was safety, but as well as other various departments I worked in, the fleet management and environmental, of defining any weaknesses within a division and applying accountability practices to those weaknesses for improvement. Okay. Our insights, or our objectives today, we're going to hit on insights in effective safety management. And, you know, in the spirit of continual safety culture improvement, this webinar was developed for those of you that may have reached a plateau with your safety culture or your safety results or the buy-in from your employees. This webinar will give you some tools on breaking through that plateau. For those of you that may be joining us that are just fully starting the safety culture seed and cultivating that culture, there'll be some tools here to help you as well. So these are the objectives. We'll hit the 6 criteria of safety excellence developed by Dr. Dan Peterson. We'll get into performance plateau or sticking points. Now, it's one thing to say, you know, we're going to reduce our accidents and leave it at that, but we're going to give you some sticking points that you can analyze your corporation company and say, okay, we have that sticking point, we have a problem in this specific area, and then give you some suggestions on how to address those. And with anything, defining your safety culture baseline, rather than throwing, darts at a wall with no target, we have to be specific on what we're going to focus on to improve. And we're going to give you some examples on how you can define your safety culture. Start with a baseline, a benchmark, and begin to improve. We'll also discuss defining a safety culture, exactly what it is. This will help you. Of course, many of you online know, can give us probably a definition of a safety culture, but we'll entertain that you can take back to your managers, supervisors, foremen, and also educate them. Step into the 6 levels of safety performance. There's 6 levels that we focus in on at Caterpillar Safety Services when we're teaching and helping companies improve. And you can look at this slide and say, yeah, this is where we're at, whether it's level 2, 3, or 4, and show the progression up to the level 1, which is the very, very top. We'll also hit on what makes a difference in safety, accountability's role in safety, and we'll give you some case studies, some other companies, as well as Caterpillar's safety journey, how we've improved on that. So that's the outline. We hope to hit on each one of these. Now, I always enjoy reading and studying Dr. Dan Peterson. He was what we consider the top safety guru, if you will, of the last 40, 50 years. And he's focused strongly on changing safety culture, of getting into the worker's head and analyzing exactly why they do what they do. And this quote here, for those of you that may have attended other webinars or had seen me present in person, I usually start each presentation off with this quote. It means a lot to me, and I found this in a book by Dr. Dan Peterson. He has a quote that says, government safety organizations continue to focus on the physical to improve safety. We know that things don't cause the majority of accidents, it's the bad behavior. Now, what's interesting about this, I found this on Amazon and ordered it, and it was on $1.99 for the book and $3.99 for the shipping. But this Techniques of Safety Management, Dr. Dan Peterson printed this back in 1971, and this quote was in that book from 71. And we can see those of us that deal with MSHA, Mine Safety and Health, OSHA, DOT, other government agencies, Coast Guard, Maritime, Safety, things really haven't changed. Those government agencies always look to the physical. We know that the majority of accidents is not due to the physical, but it's due to people taking at-risk behaviors, engaging in at-risk behaviors. And this is what we focus on at Caterpillar Safety. It's looking at those behaviors and changing those bad behaviors. So, interesting quote from Dr. Dan Peterson way back in 1971. And this quote is interesting because, you know, the level 1, level 2 companies, they're focusing in on the physical to correct. The level 3s and 4s are entering into that accountability and changing behaviors for the better. So if you want to go above and beyond, break through that performance plateau, we have to look at behaviors. 6 criteria. Again, Dr. Dan Peterson established this. And he said that, you know, as safety professionals, as managers, as foremen, as supervisors, if we're to focus in on these 6 criteria, we can be on our way to world class in safety. And like anything, we have to put effort into it. You know, there's a silver bullet out there, which I refer to this as a silver bullet to improve safety, but we have to work at things. So Dr. Dan Peterson on his first bullet there, he said top management is visibly committed. And of course, when I go in to meet with executives and upper managers, I visit with them on this and explain that, you know, we can commit to any process or improvement. We can send out an email, you know, we can send out a newsletter. But to be visibly committed is you show up. And I always use the term with executives or managers or senior VPs that vote your calendar. If there's a safety function, you show up for that function. You have a face in the crowd that people will recognize you as a top manager, that they've shown enough to show up to be involved in the safety meeting. Part of my analyzing companies, I will do employee surveys as well as employee interviews, where I'll sit down with 5 or 6 hourly line workers and visit with them on their culture. You know, I'll use a SWOT analysis of what they're proud of as well as weaknesses. The weaknesses portion, 9 times out of 10 with companies I deal with, they say that we'd like to see management more in the field. So I always share that with top management. But, Dr. Dan Peterson that says that top management is physically committed. Middle management actively involved. Of course, middle managers, those of you involved in that have probably multi-departments to manage. And just as you track production, quality, customer service, so on and so forth, are you actively involved in also supporting and tracking safety performance of the people that you supervise? Okay. Third bullet, frontline supervision is performance focused. When I present in person, I always ask, why are supervisors, foremen, and leads so important in changing a safety culture? And the answer is that supervisors are key in changing a culture for the positive, because employees will do what the supervisor wants. Of course, that can be positive if you have a supervisor that's on board with safety, that understands progressive safety management. That can be very positive in changing the workforce. And it is also the negative side if you have a supervisor out there that's encouraging his people to take shortcuts just to get the job done. That's going to have a negative effect on your safety culture. And some of our sticking points that we'll get into in the coming slides, I'll show you the supervision as far as some of those sticking points if your supervisors are not on board. Bullet number 4, employees are actively participating, and this is probably one of the key points here. That quote back to Dr. Dan Peterson from 40-some years ago, we've, as managers, and at times we will buy a program off the shelf, the safety program, and we'll take it out to the employees and say, here you go, here's your next safety program. And we'll try to force it upon them. And some programs are good, but the majority of them programs, they really don't fit what the employees need. And what I enjoy about my job is visiting with employees and getting their concerns, their weak points, and then putting together a group of 5 or 6 hourly employees where we work on a continuous improvement project on that weak area, whether it's, toolbox meetings, improving toolbox meetings, or PPE programs, or recognition. But to get ownership in a safety culture by your employees, you have to put together a team of employees that are going to use the program and implement. That reinforces ownership into the process. Of course, the key to that is management supporting that, taking the time for employees to be involved in a continuous improvement event. But the success rate has been very, very high of those companies that do this. The fifth system is flexible. Of course, what might have motivated a veteran worker with 30, 35 years of experience to work safe may not motivate a new employee coming through the door. So the system has to be flexible to accommodate the cultures as well as the different generations. Certain generations are motivated to work safe, while some generations are, you have to answer the questions up front. The last one that Dr. Dan Peterson specified is 6 criteria, and on your way to world class, the safety system has to be positively perceived by the workforce. And in that, communicate that, where there are certain OSHA, MSHA, safety, federal, state, corporate rules that we need to follow. But the big thing here is positively perceived, and the reason we follow these rules is to keep the employee safe, to get you home each night, and so that you can return, to your family as well as coming into the next morning. So some of you have probably seen the 6 criteria, but I certainly have used this throughout my safety career, and it has brought positive results. Sticking points here. It's one thing to say reduce accidents, we're going to be safe, but it's another thing to say, okay, let's identify the sticking points. And those of you that have seen me present, I want to give you tools. I want to identify areas that you need to improve upon. My career, why safety programs struggle or fail, I found that, safety is a priority, not a value. And in this, I mean that if we say safety is our priority, of course, with any priority, at times they will shift. I work with utility companies, and they'll have a storm come through, and if priorities will have to be changed. I'd rather have companies say that safety is a value. It's how we work here. It's who we are, and rather than saying it's a priority. The second area that I've identified of why programs fail is that there's no supervisor accountability for safety. Supervisors are appointed for production and quality, but in the traditional safety cultures of companies, safety is designated as the responsibility of the safety professional, which I always say that companies, they always say 400 or 500 employees, one safety professional, and I always say, wow, that's quite the safety pro that he can be in 400 and 500 places at once to ensure that your employees are working safe. Of course, that's not realistic. But we incorporate that, number one, that the supervisor accountability, they're held accountable for safety performance, and incorporating, all employees being accountable and held accountable to work safe. Lack of employee ownership is another one in safety. And I always use the definition of character. Definition of character to me is, it's what you do when nobody's around. In that, if the boss is not there, how do you work safe? If the super safety pro is not there, do you put your PPE on and follow, lockout, tagout rules and work safe? But that employee ownership and character is very, very important. Another failing point is some companies are dissatisfied with compliance, status quo, meeting the bare OSHA, MSHA compliance issues, and they're satisfied with that. Well, we know that world-class, we have to go above and beyond compliance on that to improve our safety morale, our safety culture, and our most important thing is keeping our people from being injured, and that falls into our moral and ethical obligation. And, of course, throughout my career, I've heard these quotes, Mike, we've always done it this way. That'll never work here. At that point, you're throwing in the towel already, and it's part of doing business. Accidents are just part of doing business. We work in a risky profession, so on and so forth. But those are excuses. It's like, being a coach, and before the game even starts, you talk to your players and say, boy, we're really going to get our butts kicked today. This is a better team, and, I hope they don't run the score up too high. That's kind of saying, accidents are part of doing business. You're already saying we're gonna quit before we even begin. So no excuses on that. Management sticking points. Let's identify some of these, and maybe your management team. Some of these points may occur. If they do, it's putting together a kind of a communication plan to managers. And again, taking this from Dr. Dan Peterson, management is not visible. They say they're committed, but they're not seen. Okay, and the employees want to have managers come out, management team come out and visit with them, and it can be part of the communication on, how's production going, how's the quality of your product, are we getting the project done on time, and incorporate a safety component of that. Because we can guarantee if there's a problem with a job not getting completed on time or a quality issue, guarantee management will come out about and talk about that. We need to learn that, as managers, as leaders, that we need to incorporate the safety component in our daily or weekly or monthly talks with employees. If you communicate safety in your messages about, the process of running the business, the employees will feel that it's important to you and you're communicating that out to them. Okay? Accountability, failure to measure or appraise results. We look at incident rates, we look at lost time rates, so on and so forth. But if we're just solely relying on that as a matrix, we're kind of playing the luck card and hoping for the best without being proactive or looking at leading indicators. But, above and beyond those incident rates, we need to look at quality of toolbox meetings, recognition programs, audits, completion of discrepancies found, in the workplace, the factory floor, the field on that. Of course, other management sticking points, and I've seen this in my career, is the failure to take the time for safety, time to train, or train on safety when it's convenient, or we have a rain day, let's do our safety training. To me, that's watering it down and saying that's not important. Tools, here we go, lack of proper tools to do the job correctly. Not providing the proper PPE or not defining where PPE should be worn, and equipment guarding. And these are level one, of course, the bare bone minimum. If you're not doing this, then you really need to analyze that. Other management sticking points: that goals are not clear, goals are not projected as a proactive action, and again, saying that we're going to drop our incident rate we have a goal this year of 10%. Well, set a goal on how you're going to get there. Proactive things. What are we going to focus in on? Improving employee involvement, or improving the topics, specific toolbox topics, or tailboard, or safety meeting topics. You have to be specific, set goals for that. Okay, and the last bullet there is, failure to support, encourage employees to exercise their power to decide on that, rather than waiting for management to decide on things. Incorporate a trust in supervisors and managers to make the decisions, to have a safe place to work on that, rather than waiting for managers to decide. Okay? Supervisors, and just as I said in the 6 criteria, supervisors are key in promoting a safe culture. If you have a supervisor that recognizes that improving safety culture, improving visiting with their employees about safety, and having two-way conversations, fully engaging their employees in the work process, the safety process, it will be key. But we've seen supervisors be promoted up, and usually promoted because they get the job done, they meet production goals, and they get the job done on time. But the majority of supervisors, when they're promoted, management fails to spend enough time on the soft skills or the people skills, on how to motivate people and how to have conversations. Okay, some supervisor sticking points that I found is low morale. There's tension, insecurity, lack of faith in the supervisor for promoting a safe place to work. The conduct supervisor sets a poor example for safety. I've visited with some employees that say they've seen supervisors and foremen walk past unsafe conditions and not do anything about it. And we know that we have verbal messages that we send on commitment or non-commitment to safety, but sometimes those non-verbal messages are just as powerful in sending a positive or negative message. I was out with a customer one time walking around with a supervisor on a shop floor, and he was telling me just how good their safety culture was, and how on board everybody is with safety, and how on board the management team is. And we're walking along, and about 15 feet from where we were walking, there's a puddle of hydraulic oil. Looked like a forklift had stopped there. So there's oil on the floor, and this supervisor steps right over the top of that oil and keeps on walking. And I'm like, here's someone that says, hey, we have proactive commitment to safety. And I stopped. I said, should we clean that up? Is there, towels or something around, absorb pads that we can throw on that to clean it up? And he said, oh, yeah. And he shouted at somebody across the shop floor to clean this up right now, rather than him doing it. So that type of non-verbal messages sends a lot to employees, that if we're all engaged in safety, we should all be involved in the process to correct. Okay, and I always use the term, from the top floor to the shop floor, that even if the executive sees an unsafe act or unsafe condition, step in, correct it, find out, the root cause. Is that forklift, is it all over the shop floor that day, and are there puddles of hydraulic oil every time that piece of equipment stops to lift the load? Is it dropping oil, greatly increasing the chance of somebody slipping? So initiative, again, failure to see problems, exert influence on them. Supervisors learning to get to know their people. And when I say that, it's getting to know them on a personal sense. And of course, some supervisors, they manage maybe hundreds of people, maybe less, but just recognizing that if somebody's having a bad day, is their head in the game to perform their job, at-risk job, or high-risk job rather, is their head in the game, and recognizing that somebody may be taking a risk if their head's not in the game. So but also being able to see problems ahead of it. Last one there, certainly this is not the all-inclusive list, but there's probably other areas here. But team goals, we've seen supervisors and the people they manage set goals, production goals, quality goals, but are they really setting safety goals as a team and incorporating the line workers to agree with the supervisor on proactive things to reduce injuries? Okay. A few more on supervisors' job procedures. Do they really know how to effectively do the pre-work of a certain task? Is it the safest, or is it just being done and being pushed by the supervisor to get the job done? Again, getting behind, is it fast-paced, behind schedule, taking shortcuts? With a good supervisor, they will say, we may be behind on this order, but we need to do it safe. Are there other resources that we can incorporate to get the job done without taking shortcuts, resulting in injury? Some supervisors, if the morale is low, they'll have a high turnover rate. This may be a sticking point that you can recognize. And with that supervisor, maybe it's a point for your training department or training staff to spend some time with that supervisor on, improving the morale and encouraging people to work safe. Recognition may be low or non-existent. Of course, with recognition, it's the most powerful tool in safety, but it's also the most underutilized. Recognizing people, catching people doing things right, reinforces the behavior that you want, okay, versus always trying to look for the things that people are doing wrong, okay. Also helping supervisors out, this could be a sticking point, at just job placement, just throwing somebody in a position without fully analyzing, are they the proper trained person for this job, and do they have the skill set to do that job safely and operate equipment or processes safely and efficiently, okay? This is a composite list of sticking points, world-class versus the traditional or good isn't good enough. We have world-class, top management support, employee ownership, all involved, safety is a clear value, safety expectations. Part of the traditional or maybe that plateau that you need to analyze is saying, accidents are part of doing business. I love this one, do your best and hope you get lucky. We can't control bad luck. Bullet 4, that accidents are inevitable. We work in a risky business, so on and so forth. And for the safety professionals, second to the last, their safety professionals are solely responsible. I have a case study where there was a large corporation where the safety professionals had various titles, safety director, safety manager. This company changed the title of their safety professionals to safety resource managers. It made a difference because the supervisors realized that, they're a resource for me. If I have a question, I can tap the safety professional to help out with things. But, a simple thing like a title change can really change how people view you as a safety professional, as you as a resource, and not the safety professional solely owning the safety responsibility, but it's everybody's responsibility. Okay? One thing in identifying if you're at a plateau is determining your safety baseline. And of course, there's various ways to do that. We use a safety perception survey at Caterpillar Safety Services, or SPS. And of course, I love this line from A Few Good Men when Tom Cruise has Jack Nicholson on the stand and he's pushing, and you want the truth, you can't handle the truth. Well, it surveys at times, especially our survey that you use, or if you're using an internal survey, sometimes it's difficult to hear the root cause of things and what employees are really thinking. But if you want to break through that plateau, we have to visit and establish that baseline. What our survey does, it clarifies things. Of course, with our training, we always look for the positive, so it builds on strengths that have been identified, what needs to be improved, getting concern from the employees, bones of contention. And our database, we have conducted over 900 safety perception surveys, so you can compare to other organizations as far as safety culture and scores. And the big thing here is changing culture. We know that it takes 3 to 5 years to change a culture. So that last bullet there is, it's a multi-year safety culture improvement strategy. And, you know, we don't have, I don't have magic safety dust. When I come into a corporation, I can sprinkle it over the company and everybody becomes safe. No, it's a multi-year continual improvement process, as we know, like any improvement on that. Our safety hits on these 20 safety culture indicators, and you may have developed your own internal survey, but we found out that over the years, and between Dr. Dan Peterson and our other PhD we have on staff, Dr. Mike Williamson, they have identified these 20 areas that will give a good sampling of where the culture is at. It's 70 questions, and it hits on each of these very, very important aspects of safety culture indicators versus some surveys I've seen that may be 3 or 4 questions relating to safety, which really doesn't drive down to the weak areas or the sticking points within a culture. And we've set it up where, you know, anything under a 75% score needs immediate attention. 75 to 89 and over 90, of course, is the green code. We also look at perception gaps, the difference between what management thinks as well as the line worker. And any gap above 14%, that's coded red and needs immediate attention. Okay? Oops, jumped up here. And this is kind of the composite score that, you know, once the company does a survey, our SPS, we report back out to their staff and show them the scores. And a little small on the screen, hopefully you can see that, but 9 times out of 10 that we see the top 5, we see these reoccurring themes or low scores. Recognition for performance is always towards the top. Goals of safety performance is always low. Involvement of employees is always low. I would also throw in there, you know, accountability as being areas that need immediate attention. That's very common with the customers that we have worked with. And of course, from this data, you begin to say, okay, these are weak points, or these are areas that are limiting us from breaking through that plateau, and you put together a team to work on that. Other tools we use, and you can certainly come up with your own on that, but it's just rating yourself. And this example here that some of our consultants use, and you could certainly put something together like this, it uses the 6 criteria that we covered at the opening couple slides. And you score yourself. Sit down with your management team or a group of employees, and you score yourself, you know, 1 through 5. You know, number 1 is a low scale, the traditional, you know, the middle range is progressing, or if you're best in class in that. And this will give you a good sampling of just where your culture is at. I also use a 12-point questionnaire from our Supervisor training and accountability program that focuses in on its 12 questions, and you score yourself 0 to 4. And I work in a group on this, anywhere from 12 people all the way up to 30 people, and I put people together in groups of 3 or 4, and they work and they score themselves. And I tell them, you know, if you're 0, 1, or 2, there's a column where you can come up with suggestions to improve on that question. And it's very, very useful in determining what's positive as well as areas that need to be worked upon. And then getting employees to say, okay, we've scored low. This is what we think. These are our ideas on how we can improve upon that. Again, engaging the employees, and they're actively participating. Another thing I do is employee interviews and sit down with management, sit down with line workers, and I use a simple SWOT analysis: the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths, what are you proud of here? What makes you happy of coming to work for this company? And always looking to focus on the positive first. And then we talk about the weaknesses. You know, I'll ask, what keeps you up at night? What are your safety concerns here at this company? And from those weaknesses, you develop opportunities. Okay, so it's identifying, it's being specific. It's establishing a baseline from where to work from to improve. Okay. The interviews also is just obtain buy-in, from the employees that the company cares enough about me that they want to sit down with somebody and talk about safety. You can do this internally, of course. You can have a third party come in, which usually works out a little better because employees are more open to discuss if it's somebody from the outside. The big thing here is a qualitative review of the culture and determining from there. Of course, this slide is a good one. Treatment of diagnosis is malpractice, and this means that you need to establish your baseline of where your culture's at if you want to break through a plateau and begin a culture. I always like the phrase that if we just randomly choose a safety topic to improve upon, is it really what the employees feel that needs to be improved upon, or are we just shooting in the dark? The phrase "a blind man in a dark room looking for a black cat that isn't there," I refer to that as companies that just kind of blindly pick at random a safety topic to improve upon, rather than going out, doing a survey, or talking to employees about what needs to be improved upon. There you get the employee buy-in, ownership. Okay. It's kind of a definition of safety culture. It lives in how you do things. Culture is your walk, your talk, your actions, beliefs, your values. It's what you do without even thinking about it. Kind of like our, putting the seatbelt on. Remember, I'm kind of dating myself here, but my first car, I had an old 63 Chevy Super Sport that had no seat belts, and that's the way they developed it. So I had to install seat belts as the first car. But now we don't hardly even think about putting our seat belt on. It's just a routine. That's, to me, that is culture. That is culture to me. It's what you do without even thinking about it, and that's what we strive for our employees. That the PPE, the pre-task evaluation of a job, of visiting with one another about safety, the speaking up when we see someone taking an unsafe behavior. This is the type of culture that we want. Somebody cares enough about me to speak up if I'm taking a risk, saying, "Hey, let's stop down from doing that, and let's work on a procedure to improve upon that." Okay, so that's culture to me, and these webinars are great, but I really like engaging people when I'm doing these in person on what they think a safety culture is. Okay. And of course, this definition here, I've dealt with customers that say we have low injury rates, we're doing good, and I will begin to quiz them on, okay, what proactively are you doing to reduce those numbers, or how can you prove to me you have a good culture? And they may name one or two things that they're doing, and they're usually things that, to me, they're probably playing that luck card versus being proactive about it. But the absence of injury does not equate to the presence of safety. This means a lot. And of course, the role of culture is saying that we're going to do everything proactively to offset any risks in our procedures. The opening, the 6 levels of safety, we do this to analyze companies and to visit with companies and create a bit of awareness that's saying, hey, we're at this level, but we want to grow, define as far as the level where we need to be. The level 1 that we've defined, it's reacting, okay? It's the compliance, meeting the bare bones, doing work orders, investigations, meetings. Of course, these are all, as far as the compliance, so on and so forth, investigation, meetings, we have to do these things. That's the starting point, all right? But with that, the compliance side of things, our rates may dip down, they may dip up, they may dip back down again, but it's kind of that roller coaster sine wave for incident rates and morale. What we want is that constant decline of injury rates, as well as proactive measures that you can show the lines decreasing on that. Level 2 is what we see. It's again very, very important. Very, don't get me wrong on this. Very, very important aspects to work on. Those are observations, JSAs, near-miss inspections. Your incident rates will probably be in that mid-range. What we want to focus in on is level 3. and that's safety accountability systems. It's engaging the supervisor, the foreman, management, saying, okay, safety is everyone's responsibility. We're going to hold you accountable for working safe. You have to follow the rules, have to follow the procedures. We do this to keep you safe. The safety pro is there to help you. It's not his or her program, but it's the supervisor's program. It's the line workers program. We're all engaged in this. This is probably the most challenging jump that companies make to incorporate accountability. But once they do, we begin to see the morale improve on safety and the culture take off. Level 4 is what we believe. Again, culture reality, doing surveys, doing interviews to identify specific areas to work on and improve in the spirit of cultural improvement. Level 5, that's that data-driven safety teams where we're encouraging the safety teams. We're building safety teams to improve on the weak areas, and it's a continual improvement. And of course, the level 6, it's culture in action, participation, ownership, and that passion to continually to improve. And of course, the incident rates on the right column, you're approaching zero. We certainly have case studies of companies, large companies, at high-risk occupations, industrial companies that have reached these upper levels and are approaching that zero incident rates, lost time rates, proactive measures, quantitative, good quantity of toolbox meetings as well as the quality of that. Okay? Building beyond improvement plateau, what makes a difference in safety? Again, showing this slide. This was shown earlier, but I like to reinforce this. And this photo here says a lot about where a culture is at. This is not Photoshop. This is actually out of a front page of a newspaper. And the point being here that you look at the PPE of these individuals, I mean, their safety best probably money can buy. They all have their PPE on, but here's a photo of 3 people totally not getting it, not speaking up, asking and saying, is there a safer way to do this? And again, we can place our people through training. We can put them in the best PPE. We can give the best tools for them to work with. But if the accountability is not there, it's not going to make a bit of difference how we train our people. It's that engaging of the workforce in accountability throughout. The safety river, very, very important, and you can take this back to your management teams or supervisors and say, rather than just relying on the results at the end of the year, shooting for 0 lost times or no fatalities or low incident rates. Of course, this is what results everybody wants. But rather than kind of playing that luck card or doing your best and hoping for no accidents or injuries, we need to focus on setting expectations on activities we can control. And of course, here are some of the areas on activities that we can proactively engage our workforce on and empowering them to fully be involved in. And these are just some examples. For your industry, you could build this slide into expectations specific for your industry. These are kind of a generic, keeping work areas clean, PPE, training employees on safe operation, machine guards, so on and so forth. But, we look at that yellow box, set expectations around what people can control. Not what the safety pro can control, but what your people, what your employees can control, and engaging them in those leading indicators. Again, a lot of traditional companies just focus on the downstream at the end of the year, but world-class and breaking through performance plateaus focus on those upstream, proactive leading indicators. And of course, we can put a score to this. Myself and other safety pros have worked on continuous improvement teams, on doing toolbox meetings, recognition programs, and actually scoring them. If a supervisor is held accountable and expectations on improving toolbox meetings, and he's run that in trying to improve those toolbox meetings, his manager should come out and visit one-on-one with employees to say, has the toolbox meetings improved? And you can put a score to that. That's accountability. And like I said in the beginning, the silver bullet is accountability, but we have to work at it. We have to work at it. Okay? The 4 steps of accountability. Of course, this is you'll recognize this probably in other webinars and other consultants have put on, but it's the 4-step process: define, train, measure, and recognize. The first one is to define. We set expectations and activities at every level of the job process. This is from, again, the term from the shop floor. From the top floor to the shop floor. We define safety expectations, okay? But we also define activities on how we're going to reduce incident rates, whether it's keeping a shop area clean, doing a process of lean initiatives, or along that line, and defining those activities and things that we can do at every level of our workforce. The second portion is we train. Nothing's worse than setting expectations but not giving people the proper training about safety at all levels. So we have to train our employees and communicate how we're going to reach those defined expectations. The third portion is the measurement. Of course, if we don't measure it, soon it begins to get forgotten. And the old term, what gets measured and what gets watched. We need to measure both the quantity and quality of activities that we've defined, and looking at catching people doing those activities, catching people doing things right. So the measurement side of things, and we've certainly done this at Caterpillar Safety Services, working with continuous improvement teams on defining, the quality and the quantity of those leading upstream proactive activities. The last portion is the recognition. And again, we strongly encourage and teach our events with our customers that we need to recognize that as people begin to, we've defined, we've trained, we've measured those activities. If they're doing that, we need to recognize those employees that have stepped forward and said, I'm going to take this on. I want a safe place to work for myself and my fellow worker, and we need to recognize those employees that are stepping forward and doing the right thing and engaging the process. Okay? We're looking good for time. I have a few more slides here, but with anything, I like to give some case studies. Here's one of our customers that recognized back in '99 that the incident rates were high, the safety morale was low, and they said, what do we need to do to begin our journey, to begin our cultural safety journey? You can see their incident rates were high back in '99, and they focused in on basic correction of unsafe conditions. Those are, if you refer back to the 6 levels, this was a level 1 initiative, correcting unsafe conditions. They worked through that, and those incident rates began to decrease, as well as the safety morale and the employees saying that, okay, management cares about me. They're correcting these hazards that have been there for years and years. We're finally getting them fixed because they had top management support. Okay. In '04, this company did a program on accountability, supervisors training and accident reduction, and recognition techniques. And again, that plateau was decreased in '05 as they began to drop their incident rates down. Another plateau with this customer was realized in '08. They had flattened out a bit on their incident rates, and the safety program began to get a little mundane, as well as the employees were kind of getting into a routine and being unsafe. And this company engaged the Safety Perception Survey, SPS, and they identified what the employees said that need to be improved upon, and they engaged the continuous improvement process, improving upon those areas. And this company today continues to decrease their incident rate well below 2 and approaching well below a 1.0 incident rates, and decimals on lost time accident rates, as well as being a leader in their industry of safety culture and safety morale. Okay? The Caterpillar and safety, Caterpillar itself in '03 defined Vision Zero, that management said for Caterpillar, the 130,000 employees, that they believe that all accidents and injuries are preventable. Therefore they developed the Vision Zero and communicated that out. Again, top management being visibly committed to this. They also launched in 2007 safety.cap.com, which is, if you haven't been online for that, it's a great resource for not only free safety resources, but webinars like this and other resources for you to use. In 2011, Caterpillar purchased Core Media, and that is today what is Caterpillar Safety Services, the safety culture consultants that go out and assist companies on that. A little data regarding Caterpillar. Here's their incident rates in 2003, 6.2, and you can see that decline. Management being on board with that. Of course, our goal, being a Caterpillar employee for 2010, is have an incident rate of 0.6, and it looks like 41% additional improvement needed, but I know that we are on that continuous improvement process because we have top support from management and great employees that are engaging the safety process. And incident frequency rate for Caterpillar, here it is, and that's a great line, that's a great story, and looking at continual improvement upon that. Okay, and certain initiatives here, the Safety SIP Strategic Improvement Project that they've been working on, Vision Zero, and the CPS CAT production systems, as well as the ergonomic improvement projects. Again, being proactive, just not sitting back and saying, yeah, numbers are decreasing, we're okay, but continually pushing those programs that will reduce accidents, that get people on board with safety, and sending that message that Caterpillar cares about their people, and we're going to do some programs that will reduce that. Okay, here's the data. 44,000 prevented injuries on this. Remarkable. And of course, with any company, profit very important. Not as important as our moral and ethical obligation to keep people safe, but look at the avoided costs on that, as well as tough to put a score on also the number of pain and suffering that has been avoided due to these processes. So, closing remarks before we open up for questions. Number one, get that baseline going. Know the status of your safety culture through internal surveys or interviews, but know what your people are concerned about, and go after those with continuous improvement teams. Identify the sticking points. We identified supervisor management sticking points that you can look at and say, we have a problem here. Communicate that back out, engage employees on how to improve that. We hit on management's physical commitment. That is so key on improving the culture. Engage the employees. Engaging them will help employee ownership on that. And just as the case studies I show on with one of our customers, as well as Caterpillar itself, it's a philosophy of continuous improvement on gaining and going towards world class. Okay. With that, I'll turn it back over to Abby for. It looks like we have about 10 minutes for Q&A. If we go over, it's not a problem.
All right, thanks, Mike. Very nice presentation there, and a couple of questions for you. Mike talks about involving the employee field worker through the SPS, etc. Some of us are working at the corporate level with multiple sites, each in different phases of their safety journey. What actions can we take to positively influence safety?
Very good question, and that's always a challenge with certain departments being at certain phases of it. What's unique about our safety perception survey with those 20 specific areas and 70 questions, it defines, and those questions you'd be able to extract exactly what the next sticking point or next problem to work on would be present, whether you have a level 1 company or you have a department that's maybe a level 3 or 4. With that survey data, you can pinpoint whether it's a level 4 on what to work on or a level 1 culture. So it's a very specific survey that can help you achieve that next success as a culture. Or, if you choose not to use our survey, you can certainly find a survey out there, or just simply employee interviews with a company that may be, pushing the top of world class. There's always room for improvement on that, but still engage employees on what they're concerned about. So that's what's unique about, engaging the employees, whether they're approaching world class or just starting off on their safety journey. It's that two-way conversation, asking them how we can improve and take that next step.
Okay, the next question. Accountability can be tricky. Creating this without accidentally providing a motivation to suppress incident reporting. Mike talked about catching people doing things right versus doing things wrong. Can Mike give other examples?
Other examples of catching people doing it right. I think that was the question.
I think Mike, sorry to interrupt, I think the question is other examples of creating accountability without suppressing incident reporting.
Oh, yeah, and that's always tough. Of course, we have companies that we work on with near-miss reporting, and that's always a challenge. The whole idea with near-miss reporting is learning from it to keep it from preventing reoccurring. But some employees are hesitant to report because they're afraid they're going to be disciplined on that. And at times, of course, if it's significant enough, there should be some type of a discipline to change. But if you have building a spirit of accountability and encouraging near-miss reporting, in an essence that we want to learn from it to keep you from being injured again, that would be a good step forward. That could be one example. Other portions of accountability is asking employees to, be involved in improving the process and recognize them for doing that. So.
Okay, and this question relates to the slides that you showed about Caterpillar's own safety journey. It looks like Caterpillar reached a plateau in the last 3 years. Can you explain what they are doing different to drive better results?
Internally we're working with our EH&S department on certain initiatives, rolling that out, and the EH&S department, fantastic people to work with, and we're teaming up with our Caterpillar Safety Services team to incorporate their programs as well as our programs. Internally, there are sites that we are doing the safety perception survey internally with Caterpillar, again, identifying areas to work on. So we have those programs rolling forward and always looking at continually improvement and, of course, the spirit of constantly improving. So, yeah, we're engaging the survey and looking at weak areas to improve upon internally.
All right, Mike, thanks for that. That concludes the questions that were submitted for you. So at this time, I want to thank you and all of our participants for joining today. And as a reminder, a recording of this event will be posted to safety.cat.com/webinars tomorrow, and you will receive an email notice once the recording has been uploaded. In that email, you will also be invited to take a brief survey to provide feedback about this event, and I hope you will take the time to do so, as your input will definitely help us further improve these monthly sessions. So thanks again, everyone, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks all.